Concord's death offers a bleak outlook on corporate gaming's future. After 8 years of development, Sony pulled the plug on Concord out today after just 2 weeks. Fans loved it, all 697 of them, but seemingly not enough. Is the future of the industry blockbuster or bust? For games that are built like this, yes. If you got a game that they sunk $200 million into, yeah. If it's not a blockbuster, it's a bust, obviously. If Concord was a AA game made on a reasonable budget within like 3 years by an indie team, it may have even survived with its player numbers. I don't know. Probably still wouldn't have been enough, but a smaller developer would have been smarter than to make characters that look like this. Earlier this week, after warping across the galaxy for 90 hours in a sentient spacecraft, Twitch streamer John Wismiller realized that Concord was the best first-person shooter he's played in a decade. He must not play a lot of those. The gunplay was crunchy, the movement was smooth, the progression felt rewarding, he says. I was even more enthralled by the world the developers had created when I looked into the lore. Someone must have paid this guy a lot of money. He wasn't alone. Yeah, there was 696 other people. One of the biggest perks about the game is the absence of toxicity within the player community. Everything about the game is positive and inclusive. Yeah, because it had no players. You see, this is what happens when a game successfully gets rid of the quote-unquote toxic elements of their community. They have nobody left. The people that these crazies refer to as toxic is 99.9% of the population. And guess what? 99.9% of the population can't stand you. They're more than happy to leave you alone. So on Wednesday, less than 2 weeks after the game's August 23rd launch, Sony announced it was taking Concord offline and offering full refunds to anyone who purchased it on Piss Nickel or PC. While many qualities of the experience resonated with players, all 697 of them, I'm going to keep saying that. We also recognize that other aspects of the game and our initial launch didn't land the way we'd intended, wrote Ryan Ellis, Concord's director at Firewalk Studios, a division of Sony Interactive Entertainment. So I will actually give Firewalk this. I will give them full props for costing PlayStation all this money, because PlayStation deserves to lose all this money. After how they destroyed Senran Kagura, I hope they lose $1 billion. I was completely devastated, Usmiller says. We've never seen a first-party title from Sony get this kind of treatment. That's because like they thought that their shit don't stink. Sony was like, oh, we're Sony. Oh yeah, we're known for blockbusters. Everything we make sells. Even The Last of Us Part 2 sold despite being dog shit. So when people see this new hero shooter with our branding on it, oh yeah, they're gonna just turn out by the millions and buy it. Nah, nobody cared. I think that was 25,000 sales across PC and PS5 for a game that took 8 years to make. Not good. In fact, we've never seen any AAA video game get this kind of treatment. Yeah, even Babylon's Fall lasted longer than Concord. And that's what can make Concord a horrifying Canadian the coal mine for gamers and the game workers are like, no, this is good for gamers. This means that bad games, that soulless cash-ins are going to be canceled more often and more quickly, and good stuff is going to rise to the top. That's unprecedented for a game of this scale to be shut down so quickly, says Liam Dean, a video game analyst at Omdia. Usually publishers keep games that struggle at launch on life support for a while, but in Concord's case, the launch was so bad there was clearly no way back. Yeah, look, when you got a game that's multiplayer only, there's no way to play it single player. I think it was either 5v5 or 6v6. I don't even care. But yeah, you need 10 or 12 other people to play with. You need something like 2,000 concurrent players to maintain a healthy player pool for that type of game. They didn't even get to a third of that. And the reason I say you need at least 2,000 is not even considering matches starting and finishing and some churn going on. It's not good enough. Like, say, if you had exactly 12 people playing, you're like, oh, well, what's the problem? They're all in a game. Yeah, but you're in a game with 12, well, with 11 other people throughout the entire rest of the world. Do you have any idea how bad the lag is going to be? Yeah, part of the reason that these multiplayer games need a lot of players is so you could be matched with players in your same region. Like, the more players play the game, the better the matchmaking is. The more likelihood that you'll be matched with someone of a similar skill level and in a similar location. Yeah, then not to mention the 8-minute queues. As much as I hate PlayStation, they made the smart decision shutting this thing down. Like, there was no way forward. So, like Fortnite, Destiny 2, and Valorant, and unlike them, it's not free to play. Concord was meant to be a live service that constantly released new updates over the course of several years. But while those other games are free to play and rely on microtransactions to make money, Concord costs $40 up front. It's just very difficult to break into competitive multiplayer games and displace existing top titles, said Simon Carlos, an industry analyst who publishes the Game Discover Co. newsletter. These are the kinds of titles that players socialize with their friends in, and they're often not motivated to switch games. Yes, thank you for realizing this. This is exactly the same problem that MMOs had. Like, that's why you don't have every company on the fucking planet making MMOs anymore. Because in the mid 2000s, they all saw how much money World of Warcraft was making, and everyone was going to make the WoW killer. Everyone was making an MMO. And in the end, the only one that killed WoW was Blizzard. Because, yeah, the same problem as what these guys just described, especially all the WoW clones. Why would you go to a cheap clone of WoW when you have the real thing that's had a decade of bug fixes behind it too? And all your friends are there, and your guild is there. All your memories are there. You got no reason to leave and start another game. And yeah, this is the problem live service games are running into now. Like, the market's just too saturated. Most people only have the time and money for maybe max 2 live service games. I guess if you really push it, maybe you could get 3. I think it depends on how involved those games are with your dailies and weeklies and all that. Yeah, it's very tough to get people away from the games they're already playing. They got all kinds of sunk cost in there. Yeah, if you can't sell the characters, how can you sell the hero shooter? Good point. Hero shooters rely on a good cast of characters, which Concord didn't have. All right, Sony hasn't revealed how many copies of Concord sold between August 23rd and September 3rd, but the number of number of active PC players on Steam platform peaked at just 697 on launch day. Yeah, the free open beta had more. I think the free open beta got to a little over 2,000. I guess that shows how few of them were willing to come back. And I'm sure that most of those who got into the game were already bought in anyway. I doubt they got any new customers from that. All right, that's abysmally low for a major release that spent 8 years in development. Sony's previous live service game, Helldivers 2, had over 155,000 players on its first day back in February, and later peaked at 458,709. Yeah, the key difference being that Helldivers was a good game. Helldivers 2, though, was a breakout hit that already had an established fan base. Look, the original Helldivers was like a fucking top-down isometric game. Like, that's not the same thing. Like, while it was popular enough, it's not like it wasn't 500 concurrent players popular. No, the vast majority of people that jumped into Helldivers 2 never even played the first one. And yeah, it was mostly the PC player base that carried that, exactly. Which is why the PSN requirement killed the game. Now, Concord, on the other hand, is a brand new franchise that didn't get much of a marketing push and drew the ire of anti-woke snivelers who complained about the game's use of pronouns on its character selection screen. Wow, bitter much? Someone's pretty butthurt that our side won. And let me just clarify this again. I will be the first person to admit, in the grand scheme of things, we're nothing. We're nobody. Compared to the tens of millions of people that buy video games worldwide, me, my fellow content creators, even those that have potentially millions of views, all of the people that watch us, we're a tiny minority of the entire gaming public. Most normie gamers would react to us like they reacted to Az and his freaking pronouns rant. They'd be laughing at us, telling us to find real problems to worry about, telling us to go touch grass. And yet, even those normies are not buying this game. Do you guys not realize this? Like these quote unquote anti-woke snivelers that you're complaining about are such a small percentage of total gamers, and their audience makes up such a small portion of gamers. Like, are you implying that we, despite being such a minority, have so much power to determine whether a game succeeds or fails? Nice. Feels like Gamergate all over again. For big companies, it's difficult to work out what bets and how large bets they should make, says Carlos. Some of the corporate overexuberance during Corona and low interest rates has meant that large companies overextended, and the pullback has been and it's going to be painful. Yeah. Meanwhile, all of us were there from day one, screaming at these idiots, "We don't want this. Don't make this. Nobody likes this. We don't want this. We're not going to buy this." And what did they do? They called us bigots and said it's not for us. And then when we didn't buy it, it's somehow our fault it failed. But it's not for us. Why don't you blame the modern audience for not supporting you? You said it wasn't for us. What made you think we were going to carry you? So over the past 20 years, a brutal blockbuster or bust mentality of Silicon Valley startups has spread to executives across the entertainment industry. Movies with $100 million production budgets are considered dead on arrival after a bad opening weekend and are quickly ripped from theaters. Just like with video games. The majority of the money you're going to make, actually, no, it's not as bad in movies as it is with video games. But yeah, they make most of their money in the first week. With video games, it's especially bad. Like there've been games out there that have made something like 75% or so of their money in the first like 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, there's always rare exceptions, like games like Among Us that have been out for years before they get discovered. But yeah, in general, especially with these big budget, high profile games, the most money they're ever going to make is like within the first few weeks. So if the first few weeks are a dumpster fire, then yeah, the smart people at these companies know, like, yeah, we've already recouped like 75% of what we're gonna, and we're nowhere close to breaking even. So yeah, this has got to go. TV series are canceled after failing to meet Underscore's performance metrics in their first seasons. Yeah, I really wish that these companies were forced to make their numbers public. Yeah, that includes like Disney Plus, that includes the console manufacturers. They don't want that though, because they want to be able to keep lying to their investors. So now the quick death of Concord, which officially went offline today, points to a similar mindset in the video game industry that could kill creativity, reduce jobs, and shutter entire studios. Now, it's going to reduce jobs and shutter useless studios, yes, but it's not going to kill creativity. No, this is actually going to be a boon to creativity. These big corporate studios don't really have that anyway. So it's not like this is it's not like this is a big loss. No, but pretty much all the creativity comes from the indie and double A side, and then some triple A steals the idea. That's generally how it works. Now, if you have a stable parent company with a balanced set of single player and live service releases, you should be in decent shape, says Carlos. But the middle of the market is disintegrating. The games industry is deprofessionalizing in many ways. Games as a stable profession will be tricky for many people in high GDP countries. So now that you can't milk it for money anymore, there's no need to be there, right? So good. All the activists are going to fuck off and leave. That's how it should be. If studio C-suites keep cutting all the buds that don't instantly blossom, the golden age of gaming of the 2020s, mix of AAA blockbusters like Elden Ring, Tears of the Kingdom, and Baldur's Gate 3, alongside smaller budget games like Tunic, Chance of Sonar, and the reimagining of the 1997's Riven could already be over. What the fuck are you talking about? The golden age of gaming was like the late 90s, early 2000s. Like, that was the golden age of gaming. It's been downhill since then. Like, man, compare the PS2's library to the PS5's library. Ah, see, good point. You're missing the point. Concord died in less than 2 weeks. Most people get paid every 2 weeks. They just were waiting on the next paycheck. Honest. To make it available to purchase again. That's right, Soiny. That's right. Yeah, the Silver Age was the 360. Yeah. Now, I will admit, Elden Ring in particular, anyway, I wish I could give credit to who I first saw say this, but I completely agree with them because I had the same experience. Like, I was almost starting to fall for the gaslighting. Like, I was starting to seriously consider, like, maybe gaming, I mean, yeah, it's changing a little bit, but maybe it's not the industry that's the issue. Maybe it's just me. Because, like, for example, in the distant past, I was a lot more forgiving of censorship, but that's primarily because I didn't know it was happening. Like, when I was a little kid with an NES, I had no idea that I was playing censored games. I had no way of getting that information. So I started thinking, like, maybe gaming isn't any better or worse than it's always been. It's just we got more information now, and I'm blowing things out of proportion where previously I used to not let it bug me. So I was starting to have thoughts like that, outside of blatant woke garbage. Yeah, maybe it's just me. Like maybe as I've become a crusty old fart, maybe I'm the one that changed. Yeah, maybe I can't get the same enjoyment out of games anymore because I'm just too old. And then Elden Ring came out, and I got just as immersed in Elden Ring as I ever did in any of the games I played as a kid. And then I'm like, no, this proves the problem isn't me. The problem is definitely the game industry. Because you give me a good game made in current year, and I will enjoy the fuck out of it, just like I did when I was a kid. It's just that, yeah, most games are in fact fucking shit. And then not to mention, I can still go back, like I could still play Warcraft 2 and get more enjoyment out of that game than most newer games. And I remember when Warcraft 3 Reforged was coming out, and Blizzard was fielding questions like if they're going to remake Warcraft 2. Thankfully, they're not, because we saw how Warcraft 3 went. But yeah, they pretty much implied that they're not gonna because it wasn't fun. So I went back and I replayed it after they said that, and I'm like, what the fuck you on about? This is more fun than your new stuff. When's the last time Duke Nukem was good? Hey, I don't give a fuck what anyone says. I liked Duke Nukem Forever. Now, was it the masterpiece that everyone expected a 13 years in development game to be? No, not by any means. But I thoroughly enjoyed playing it. Like I don't get what everyone was bitching about. Like I actually had fun playing the game. Like, I think most of the bitching was that like as long as the game took to develop, everyone was expecting it to suck your dick or something. But I actually liked it. And especially the DLC. Like the DLC expansion, that shit was great. And that was, considering that was the last Duke Nukem game to come out. Yeah, Duke Nukem's been great since from start to finish, as far as I'm concerned. Now, everyone else is welcome to disagree, but I actually enjoyed the game. Now, you like the ability to pick up and throw poop? Of course. And find rats and put them in the microwave? Slap tits on the wall? Yeah, there was some weird tone decisions in that game. And you could clearly tell that the game was made across 3 different time periods, because you could pretty much split the game in thirds and they're almost separate games. But I legitimately enjoyed that game. I don't care what anyone says. Now, it was the same thing with Fable. A lot of people were disappointed with Fable because it didn't live up to the hype. But I always liked it and enjoyed it for what it was. You see, my advantage was I'd never let myself get caught up in the hype for that game. So then when it finally came out, I actually legit liked it. If I was expecting something a million times bigger and better and didn't get it, yeah, I'd be disappointed, I guess. But I didn't go into it with those expectations, and I actually liked it. It was great. Never played 2. 3 was okay-ish. No, 2 was the best one, though. Now, that aside, I still think Duke Nukem 3D is better than Duke Nukem Forever. But I didn't hate Duke Nukem Forever. Could we have Duke Nukem Forever's 2 little quotes? No, they added a bunch more in the DLC. Now, I just like the beginning of the DLC where you had all the Duke Nukem clones, like all the ones in different, from speaking different languages. Like they were all just saying, I have balls of steel in their respective language. That was fucking hilarious, man. Then you had to platform your way out of that fucking factory. Fable Anniversary Edition is worth playing. I will vouch for that, yes. Fable Anniversary Edition on the PC is fucking great. Yeah, I went back and replayed it a few years ago, and yup, still like it. Game's a lot shorter than I remembered, but what did I expect? So I think innovation is more likely to come from smaller companies with lower budgets that are happier to take risks. Yeah, and indies. That's what we've been. How many years have we been saying this? Looks like the mainstream media is finally catching on. Says Piers Harding Rolls, who leads the game research team at Ampere Analysis. This has really been been true for many years. Thank you. But the current commercial environment makes it truer than ever. Still, even the futures of indies is uncertain and may be somewhat dependent on funding efforts like Inner Sloth's Outer Sloth initiative. What I love about indie game dev, and to be honest, pretty much any other business in general, you could pretty much split the people in it into 2 groups. You got the people that make up excuses for why they can never be successful. And then you got the people that just do it and become successful. And when that happens, if you're the person that just put your nose to the grindstone and you did it and you made something and you became successful, all the losers that spent years making up excuses for why they can't do the thing you just did, suddenly you just got lucky. Oh, they would have done it too, but you just got lucky. It's kind of infuriating. Yeah, they're all just perpetual victims. Like, man, I got so fucking sick of that attitude, like in independent comics, among some indie devs that I associate with. Now, I like, especially with the comics, really. Because but before we launched book 1, there were so many people basically concern trolling, saying, "Oh, you shouldn't even do this. Oh, it's gonna fail. There's no way indies can succeed in this." They all just disappeared once we did, though. Concord may have gotten off to a slow start with gamers, most of whom hadn't heard of it yet. Oh, I can guarantee you, everybody heard of Concord. It's been the biggest meme on the internet for like 2 weeks. Oh, everyone's heard of it. And critics who didn't love the initial character designs, but the same could be said of Elder Scrolls Online, which has since made more than $2 billion. Yeah, Elder Scrolls Online also came out in a time when these types of games were feasible, and they had the time and money and patience to wait. Or the Destiny franchise, which celebrates its 10-year anniversary next year. Well, Destiny I wouldn't be using as a good example because it's on the decline. Or No Man's Sky, which has become a cult classic. Well, No Man's Sky was I guess it's kind of sort of multiplayer, but it was never like it's not the type of multiplayer that Concord is. It doesn't have the same requirements. Concord literally had to be taken offline because you people were waiting 8+ minutes for a match, and it was a shitty match at that, full of lag, because the only 12 people available to play were covering every country on the damn planet. Yeah, I think Elder Scrolls Online is the only one of these games that might be a legit comparison, but I think Elder Scrolls Online, even though it had a rough start, it still had a much better start than Concord did. Its small audience was enough to keep it going until they fixed it. That same thing cannot be said for Concord. If those games are released now, would they survive longer than Concord did? Longer than the lifespan of a honeybee? The answer lies with the most ruthless beekeepers in the industry, and all they care about is the honey. No, I disagree. If they really did, then they wouldn't have allowed those character designs from Concord. If Concord had Senran and Kagura character designs, it probably would have been a big hit. It would have been getting first Descendant numbers. Now, it may not have kept those numbers if the game itself wasn't good enough, but you at least would have been able to get that many people willing to try it. Concord, though, if anything, I think its biggest flaw was it didn't give anyone any reason to try it. Even your average normie who doesn't follow people like me, they looked at that and just went, nope, there's nothing here I like.